Hey everyone, welcome back to our time lapse. I've basically sped this guy up about 3 times, so that way we can get about 45 minutes to an hour's worth of sculpting down in the next 15 minutes. So what we're doing now is we're still adjusting things like silhouette and blending. We need this guy to feel like he fits well onto the torso that we've constructed. So going in here and just kind of adjusting these shapes to make sure that they fit nicely. We have to do a little bit of repair work from splitting off the lower jaw from the upper jaw. So we need to make sure that things fit together, and we don't want any super obvious visible seams if we can avoid it. So we're going to go through here and we're going to just kind of bulge up some of these areas, make sure we don't have any real obvious clipping errors. And for that I'm just using the standard brush, a little bit of move brush, and as you can see with the standard brush I'm also adding extra kind of muscles that wouldn't necessarily be any human, but we had that space, so we put them in there to see if they look alright. Maybe they don't, maybe they do. Doesn't hurt to try. So going on here and adjusting that horn, we want to make sure that it has an insertion point. Went in with the trim dynamic and harden that horn while we're at it. So we want to get the sternocleido feeling like it's going under that clavicle, but we haven't built the clavicle out very well yet, so we're going to have to adjust that later and make sure everything blends a little bit nicer. So we're still just going to mess with this clavicle a little bit more. Take a look at some reference. Alright, now we're going to come to the top of the head and we're going to adjust some more silhouette-based things, and we're going to do a little bit more cleanup. Just, want to make sure that things feel alright. Come here with our clay buildup, add some structure to the lips. I'm going to adjust the nostrils. Want them to feel like they're jutting forward a little bit more, so we're going to come in and... Oh, not right now, we're not. Affecting the bone structure a little bit more. Coming in with our clay buildup, doing little things to try to emphasize some of these shapes. Now, as I said, I have some reference up in the background. I'm kind of looking at some other sculpts and some other kind of creature anatomy and some lizards and some things that will help to inform some of the decisions that I'm making. Now let's get this lid in here a little bit better. So we're going to use our Damon Standard brush and our clay buildup and our move and just kind of clean up that area, make it look like make it look like it's really overlapping. Getting some muscle behind that brow. Now we're going to come in here and get some muscle through that area, and all that is some clay buildup and some smooth. Just some strategically placed clay buildup. You want to make sure that you're putting it in between other sections of clay buildup while you're at it. So once again, an insertion point, just some clay buildup, a little bit of standard brush and a little bit of Damon Standard brush. We need our ear hole. Get that in there. So once again, Damon Standard, clay buildup, smooth. It's pretty much going to be a common thing that you see. So we're going to come in here on these horns and harden them out a little bit with our trim dynamic. And some insertion points, and then we're just going to break the really, really simple shapes and give them something a little bit more, I don't want to say a little more dynamic. It is a little bit more dynamic, but it has a little bit more form to it. Alright, so now we're just going to continue adding some mass to the back. Felt like it was getting a little too skinny compared to everything else. And as always, just kind of look at everything together to see how things are feeling. So never stop making adjustments. We're going to just take a look at these eyes, and one of the things I noticed was that they were way too big. They were getting kind of anime. And I wanted this guy to feel a little bit more brutish, a little harsher. And one thing you can do for that is give him nice, small, beady eyes. So So shrink the eyes down, go into which was pretty simple, just scale them down, and then adjust the eyelids. Now we're coming around the edges of the lips. We want them to feel like they've got some mass to them. So we're just going around the edge, just giving it a quick clay buildup, a little bit of a smooth. Hide that seam. And come back to the eyes. Now we're going to be using something called the orb crack brush. That's something that you can find online from the sculptor orb. So now, the reason I like this brush is because it's got, unlike the Damon Standard, which has a really soft fall off, the orb crack brush has a nice sharp fall off. So it kind of looks more like something that got carved in there. So we're going to adjust the shape of these nostrils, and we're going to go in with our trim dynamic. And at this point, I kind of decided that I wanted to harden the edges on a lot of things. It's more of a stylistic choice, as opposed to making everything super organic. Going with the orb crack brush in between some of these forms, that way we can kind of emphasize them a little bit more. And now we're going to start making some scales. Now there's several ways to make scales. You could go in here with alpha brushes, or you could do what I'm doing, or you could do any number of things. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to mask off an area, extract some geo out, and just put it on top. Kind of take a look at it, go back and adjust the mask. I noticed that things fused together a little bit. I got my masks a little bit too close together. Another option is to just take the area and inflate it. I decided to put it on top as geo solely because I wanted to be able to affect it later. Maybe if I wanted it to be removable, then the easiest way for me to do it was just to make a separate piece of geo. Same with this horn. I wanted a pretty easy to use horn, and the easiest way for me to get it in the right spot and roughly the right shape was just to extract it from the main body. And then just duplicate it and move it around. We're going to add a few more horns in just a moment. Get some more neck muscle. We're a little bit too high res, so I need to down res a little bit and then get in there and smooth it. Then go in with a move brush and just kind of try to get it to feel like it's blending into the form below it a little bit better. It's important to me to have that trapezius feeling right. Alright, now we're going to start going in and adding some more secondary details throughout the rest of the head. And really all this is just little bits of detail that you can pick up on with your eye. It's kind of just creating little focal points. You don't necessarily need to go in and put scales on everything, when really you can do that in the texture. You don't have to do it in the sculpt. What you can do is you can create little areas, like in the area on the brow that I just added. Anytime you look at this, you're going to notice this small little detail, and you're going to think that the model is way more detailed than it actually is. You're basically creating an illusion of detail as opposed to actually going in and adding a lot of detail. Which in some ways can be better, because if you go in and add a lot of detail, it can create some pretty muddy looking things. So in combination with like these small scales, that little added detail can help to sell that this guy has can help to sell what kind of material this guy's skin is. So we're going to go in here and we're going to add some more horns. All we're going to do for that is just duplicate the mesh and then kind of affect the size and placement of things. Using our transpose lines just to kind of transpose lines and move tools just to try to give us something that we like. Now obviously the more spines and stuff that you add, the more dense your model's going to be in the end when it comes to the actual retopo and and UVs and stuff. So be strategic when you place these. You don't need to put 500 million spines on them. You could probably get away with half as many as you think you need. Going with our orb crack brush, and now we're just adding little bits of wrinkle lines. Once again, we're not going crazy with it. We're just getting enough in there to make it look like he's more detailed than he is. We're going to emphasize that shape a little bit more. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to add some cracks to the edges of things. Once again, informing the viewer of what material this is. If it's a nice, sharp, cracky material, they're going to feel like it's something hard, as opposed to if we did it in any other way, it might come across as soft. Alright, so now we're going to go into our bottom jaw, and we're going to start defining some of this anatomy. I was considering whether or not to make the bottom jaw just like made of metal. Like something in my head said make it iron. So I'm still thinking about that. And if I decide to do that, I'm going to go in here and remove a lot of what I'm adding now, just to kind of harden it and like shape it so it looks like it was made of metal. And I'm kind of leaning towards that, so I might come back and just kind of do it. Just have like an iron jaw. Once again, just adding little detail things. Show the main form above, and then we can kind of adjust the sculpt to fit. Get a nice sharp point. Just using the pinch brush and some move brush. Doing the same thing on this horn as we did on the other horns. Alright, there's not a whole lot to say other than we're just going to keep adding little tiny details. Not really little tiny details. We're going to keep adding secondary details, and we're going to keep adjusting the shapes of things until we get it to a decent point. Going to kind of cover that seam that we just created. I guess the horn was covering the errors. Okay. Once again, look around the model. Kind of see how it's fitting with everything else. One of the things I immediately noticed was that the teeth weren't looking right, so I need to adjust those. Realistically, we need to go in and make teeth for every single, like, actually go along the gum line and make teeth that fit the gums. Which I may do, but I'm going to do it off camera, because really it's just taking those teeth and placing teeth, and you don't need to watch me do that. It's just a tedious thing that's just going to eat up time. Okay, now I'm going to come in here, and the concept has like a metal piece on the back of the jaw. So I'm just going to take a cube and I'm just going to shrink it down like crazy. And I'm going to just kind of place it roughly in the right place in the back of the jaw. And this is also what's kind of informing me that maybe I want to make his lower jaw iron. Otherwise, it wouldn't make a lot of sense why this is here. I feel like it would probably prevent the creature from opening his jaw, as somebody pointed out to me. So I am leaning towards making this lower jaw iron, so that way it has a hinge. Alright, just masking off an area. I needed to divide it up a couple times to make it nice and clean. Mask off the area, just kind of extrude that out so it looks like it has some bolts on it. And then we're going to go around the sides of it and just kind of make it look like it's digging into the skin. Which is really just taking the standard brush and just going in random directions and along the edge of it. Same on the bottom. Alright, and now pretty quickly it looks like we have an extra little story detail, an added little detail. Now we're in that final phase where we just kind of go through and add little things here and there. Little pock marks, little bits of stretched skin. Kind of emphasize some of these forms a little bit more. Sometimes I have a tendency to overly exaggerate some areas simply because it bakes better in the normal map. Alright. So we're just going to finish off doing a couple little things. Sharpen his Adam's apple. Accentuate his jaw, because you know what? It makes a cool silhouette. At this point I'm going through and I'm just adjusting shapes to affect the silhouette. We still have to put a ring in his nose. I'll do that probably later. I want to be able to get to his nose pretty easily without it being in the way. So by pulling out his jaw a little bit, it really sharpened up his features, which I really like. So I'm just going to keep it. What we're trying to get the feel of the character from the sketch. We want it to maintain the personality as much as possible. So to do that, to help us, before we move on to the next section, we're just going to adjust the arms. We're going to adjust the chest a little bit. We're going to just make quick edits to the anatomy and the placement of things. I still need to make new hands. I promise I will. And just kind of make him feel like he has a puffed out chest, arms back a little bit, real confident pose. His head's pretty sharp. We're going to check it under other madcaps. We want to see how things feel under different lighting conditions in madcaps. We put the rim light on it, and things are looking pretty good. So since we're coming near the end, let's take one final look, and yeah, we're pretty good. Alright everybody, welcome back. We have our not really finished head, but good enough to move along to the next part. We're going to come back later and we'll do even more detail-y stuff, and we'll adjust things based on what we do with the rest of the sculpt. But this is a very good point to move on to the rest of the body, which is going to be the next module. So, my name is Ryan Rabeau. Thank you for watching 3D Motive. I'll catch you guys in the next module.